Welcome back to the Triple Threat Podcast. My name is William and Ishan. Joining alongside me today is Ishan Chef.
What's up?
And we have the Lefkoe man in the building from the podcast formerly known as Simpson. Lefkoe, how you doing, Lefkoe?
Bro, this song. Tell me about it. Where did you guys get this? This is great.
So we got Rod the Regulators came in, made this beat for us, and now I got Rod some questions. So Rod has asked, what was your favorite off-air moment?
Ooh. Okay, so off-air moment, like ever, like with Sims, like
Ever, like I'm just getting what Rod told me.
okay. What is my favorite off-air moment? Well, one, that's amazing that Rod Simba did your beat. He, of course, did the beat for the new Lefkoe Show, and it is fire. I would say my favorite off-air moment was probably when we went to this training camp tour, and this is like 3-4 years ago, and we went to like San Francisco, Seattle, and like we weren't doing as many podcasts, so a lot of it was just like traveling around and like having a good time. And when we did the ill-fated Golden Gate Bridge episode that will never see the light of day, we thought we were really funny and we weren't. But I would say that trip was the best trip, man.
He also said, do you have a bucket list of non-sports people you'd like to interview on the pod?
Ooh, I would say Dave Chappelle is on that list. I would say that Seinfeld is probably on that list, like a lot of comedians. I would also say, non-sports people. I will put, who do I want on there? Well, now that I'm doing it with you, that one's checked off. So that, and I feel like I don't know why, but there's a few like big name chefs out there that I'd like to do something with David Chang. I'd like to sit down and chop it up with him.
Okay, I gotta ask, did you watch Hakeem Butler?
Okay, not only have I watched Hakeem Butler, I've really enjoyed the debate around Hakeem Butler. I didn't realize that you came to the taping of the podcast in Atlanta and you say, keep an eye on Hakeem Butler. And I think you picked the most divisive wide receiver in the draft. Half of the draft community believes that he can play all over the field. He's got a lot of good quickness and agility, and he can play slot or outside. And the other half of the community believes that he's not that explosive. While he's large, he's lumbering. And it's interesting. It's like a Devin Funchess type of prospect. That you really picked the most interesting one, man.
I mean, it really worries me about how Devin Funchess has developed. But just being 6'6" and running a 4.4 40 is just... With his hands, just really excites me as a prospect. And he met with the Saints. The other day, or he's gonna meet with the Saints, which is really exciting for me. Now onto the actual questions. It's something we like to talk about here on the pod: is how expectations can stall the development of teams and players. How does this affect the Browns this season and the Steelers? Because the Steelers' expectations has gone way down, and the Browns have been lifted to a Super Bowl contender type of expectation in Cleveland.
I think this is the first year in a long time that the Steelers aren't picked to finish in a lot of people's mind right now. Not only one, I think you can make the argument that they're not expected to finish two. You can make a really good argument that the Ravens and Browns could finish higher than them in the AFC North. And I haven't heard that about the Steelers in about 5-6 years. I would say ever since they've had Antonio Brown and Big Ben and Le'Veon Bell, they're the favorites to win the AFC North. So I will say that I am very much expecting the Steelers to be better than expected, because I think that their offensive line is still going to be good. I think their defense will still come around with their athletes towards the end of the year. And I think that Big Ben is going to figure this out with Tomlin. I think that that's secretly a good core, even though we all like to crap on them. The Browns, what's interesting is they're not just expectations. They're expectations for people that are often disgraced. Odell Beckham is often drugged through the mud. The city of Cleveland is often drugged through the mud. Jarvis Landry, while he got paid, was given away by his former team. Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield gets called Johnny Manziel by people like me. And even though he went first, there were still concerns about him being small. So it's interesting. They have this coach, too, that, never got an opportunity for a head coach. So if there's a team that it could hit really hard, it's this team, because they all have their own little chips. But we all see the possibility that if they come together, and if Freddie Kitchens is able to do this, and the the family that runs the organization lets it happen, the Haslams, that this team has the potential to do something special. But we really don't know. I just know that the way it's built with Chubb and Njoku and Landry and Beckham and Callaway and that O-line, it could be really, really special. And I think we're going to see the most motivated Odell we've ever seen before.
And they do have a lot of character issues in the locker room. And how do you think a first-year head coach in Freddie Kitchens, who isn't the most vocal of guys, is going to lead a locker room? Or is it going to be someone like Steve Wilkes, who comes in from the defensive side and is going to be the emotional leader? Or is it Baker that comes in and gets the team together? Because they added Sheldon Richardson, they added Olivier Vernon, they add Odell. One altercation could send this whole team crashing down.
Yeah, but I like to have faith in them. You know what I mean? It feels like it's Baker's team, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, to me, it feels like when Baker says something, the city of Cleveland shifts. And I think that the things that I've always heard about Freddie Kitchens, and I've watched and I've seen interviews about Freddie Kitchens, he always is the guy in the coaching staff that everybody trusts. He's always the coach that everyone goes to because he didn't play office politics. Like, you guys will realize this when you start working and like you're in like the real world. It's not about how hard you work and people like see it. Like, you guys are at the stage where you get good grades and then colleges see that and then they make you an offer. In the real world, that doesn't exist. Like, it's you take things, and Freddie Kitchens never did. So there's part of me that thinks that this really good guy, if he could be super honest with his players all the time, no BS, no office politics, it could be an oasis. But history has shown us sometimes that it can be too much for somebody like that. I'm rooting for Freddie Kitchens. Anyone that wears a button-down that's an XXL with a hat and that looks like he's going to like a fireworks show has my vote. Like, I think he looks like a great guy. But I'm nervous because you know that all the talking heads are ready to attack this year for real.
So next season, is there a player or a team that will disappoint us?
I would say that I've subscribed the last few years to the Dallas Cowboys ping pong effect, where one year they have a great year, and then because of that, you talk about expectations, they ride it too much, and typically they don't get that injured, and then the next year the injuries mount up and all the expectations. I could see the Cowboys coming back to earth next year, mainly because I'm already seeing it with these contracts. DeMarcus Lawrence is in a furious up and back, causing them to make a trade for Robert Quinn. I see Zeke's contract coming up. I see Dak's contract coming up. I see Amari Cooper's contract coming up. And you just begin, and Byron Jones's contract coming up. And you just begin to realize, like, man, I could see this impacting their mindset. I think that's one team that I could see taking a step back. I have a lot of confidence in the Eagles. I think I could see the Falcons having a much better year. I could see the Saints. I could see the Saints taking a step back. I really could, just because I know that they're getting more pieces and that they're really great. And Sean Payton's awesome, but I also look at it and go, okay, I don't like Latavius Murray as much as I like Mark Ingram, and okay, you know, they were able to survive a lot of offensive line issues and all that, but it's just hard to keep doing it year in and year out. So I think that might be tough to wait.
Yeah, especially with the retirement of Max Unger and, once again, Mark Ingram going to the Ravens. It's definitely hard to replicate it. But, yeah,
sure.
You mentioned the Falcons, and that's my team. And I'm really excited for this year. Injuries, we've now recovered from our defensive injuries. We have a high pick in the draft, and I'm looking at maybe Christian Wilkins or Ed Oliver. And then also, I think with Dirk Cotter instead of Steve Sarkisian, I think that'll be a lot better. He can turn average offensive players into studs, and we saw that in Tampa Bay.
Oh, of course. I think what Dirk Cotter has always been able to do is to push the ball down the field vertically and take advantage of mismatches. It was never the offense that was the issue in Tampa. It was the fact that their defense was an absolute sieve with Mike Smith. And you guys know all about Mike Smith, so that really wasn't They play the same defense every time. So Steve Sarkisian, I thought, had a pretty good offense. I don't think it was anything to write home about. I think Cutters will be a lot more aggressive, which fits Quinn's aggressive style defense. Contract-wise, I get worried about Grady. Just is he going to be happy on the franchise tag? That's just something I think about. But you're right, like Deion Jones and Keanu Neal and the other safety coming back, and your offensive line was like down like 8 or 9 people. Now, just because you guys were injured last year doesn't mean that you won't be injured. Like, you could still have back-to-back injuries, but like, odds are you guys should be more healthy this year because you didn't even have Devontae Freeman for the whole season.
Yeah.
So you're a team that when it comes to injuries, I expect you guys to bounce back in a big way. I expected you guys to win the South last year.
I mean, I think personally the reason that the Falcons have taken a step back, also injuries, but I think they haven't really gone over the Super Bowl. I don't think that they've emotionally gone over the hump, and we could see the same problem with the Saints next season, but I think that we've shown ourselves to be able to come back from such harsh times and bounce back stronger. But talking about the NFC East and your Eagles, so what do you think about the offseason moves that they've made, signing or trading for Deshaun Jackson, which you called on that Monday pod in Atlanta, and signing or trading for Jordan Howard the other day? So what do you think that that's going to do for the Eagles offense?
Yeah, if you look at the collection, so those two moves, they do the trades. They trade Michael Bennett to the Patriots, and then they sign Malik Jackson. They let Nick Foles go, so now it's officially Carson Wentz's team and nobody else. And they made a lot of little signings that I don't think people noticed. They got Jason Kelsey, the center back, for a year. They got Jason Peters, the tackle back, for a year. They re-upped Brandon Graham to lock him down at defensive end. I look at this Eagles team and I look at the way it's built. Carson Wentz, if he's healthy and playing smart, is top 5 in the NFL because of his arm strength, his athleticism, his ability to read the defense. Alshon, great big receiver. Deshaun, super speed. Nelson Aguilar, great underneath. Your tight ends, Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz over 100 and a million catches last year. And now you have like another it's a rotation of running backs back there with Jordan Howard and all that. I look at the team and I go, the number one thing that got me frustrated about the Eagles is they would always try to run to the outside and we didn't have a Tevin Coleman. Like, the Eagles didn't have the speed guy to make it. Darren Sproles is quick, but he's not fast. And Jordan Howard's elite running style is straightforward. And the number one place where the Eagles were able to run the ball last year was right behind Jason Kelsey in that center. So I think that this will be my prediction, that Jordan Howard is not going to have 1,000 yards. I don't think it's going to happen. But there will be multiple games next year where the Eagles are able to put the team away because of a few huge Jordan Howard runs right up the gut, where it's that 3rd and 3, bang, Jordan Howard gets in there. I think he's a game winner, but not an analytics dream. So I think the Eagles could be good, but it all comes down to Carson Wentz because the last 2 seasons he's played, he didn't finish because of injury.
And also, he doesn't really fit with Zach Ertz and Alshon Jeffrey because what Nick Foles does and what makes people think that he's better than Carson Wentz is his ability to just throw it up and trust his receivers to go get the ball. Because obviously we've seen Carson was an MVP candidate. If he gets one more injury, how does that affect his career going long term?
Right. I think the good thing for Carson Wentz is that he has 2 great examples to learn from. Number one is Andrew Luck. Carson Wentz is Andrew Luck in the beginning. Great mobility, could throw it a country mile. Everybody loves him, super good, but he puts his body at risk. You look at what Andrew Luck is doing right now, not getting hit as much. It's smarter. Hopefully he can see that and learn from it. But I also hope that he watched Nick Foles and realized sometimes you can just lob it up. Sometimes with Alshon Jeffrey, I know it doesn't make sense, but I saw it in the Super Bowl. The first touchdown was just a 50-yard lob to Alshon. He was completely covered. But some guys are just great in the air, and that's Alshon Jeffrey. Julio Jones, great in the air. And there's some guys that you lob it up there, and they're made to get 50-50 balls. So I hope Carson can learn from Nick Foles to trust his receivers and I hope he can learn from Andrew Luck to defend his body.
Well, you didn't see in the division round with Alshon Jeffrey. Just had to get one little Saints jab in there. But on a less serious note, if you were to go to the combine, what would your measurables be in the 40-yard dash, bench, vertical, and broad?
All right, well, you've seen me. What do you think it would be?
I mean, 40, I'd say slower than Dwayne Haskins, maybe.
Oh, you think I'm in the 5 flats?
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Like a 5.0, I'd be ecstatic. I think I'm probably like a 5.2. In terms of benching 225, I'm going to go for a half. I think I might be able to get one. I'm not going to sit on here and lie to you guys. I like you too much. I think my vertical leap is about a 13 inches. And I think my 3 cone is like a 6.62. I think I'm an elite level quickness. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, that'd be better than DK Metcalf.
My Wonderlick is going to be up there. I can get that one.
Oh, I took the Wonderlick the other day. It's a pretty hard test.
Ooh, what'd you get?
43.
Nice.
Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that one.
Yeah, it feels good.
So I don't really like the term of winning and losing in free agency before teams and players have played a game for the team. But what team has gone under the radar this offseason? Who's a sleeper pick for winning the free agency?
I definitely think the Browns are up there. Just all the moves they've made, the excitement they've done. I think the Packers are a team that I'm very excited to see what they're building, kind of setting the inside of their line with Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith to go along with Mike Daniels and Kenny Clark. I think that's a really good foursome with some of their athletes in the secondary that could really create some havoc. I look at other teams. I really don't know what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are doing. I know that a lot of people, it's become the story of the offseason, talk about comp picks, and the Bucs really have no regard for getting more picks in the future, and I don't understand a lot of their signings. The Raiders have made a lot of splashes. I'm curious to see how they come together, everything from LaMarcus Joyner to Burfict to Antonio Brown to completely switching up their offensive line and paying for Trent Brown. I'm curious to see what happens in Detroit. How really big of an impact is Trey Flowers? It's something we all assume, but, he was up in New England and part of a rotation, and we've seen that story before. I mean, the Lions are just renting old Patriots players with Amendola and Trey Flowers. I think other teams that come to mind, it's interesting to watch Miami go through 4 to 5 years of Tannehill and then go, let's shut it down and start over. But I do think that with their new coach, B-Flow, Flores, they could be interesting in about 3 years. And then the Ravens. I don't know what the Ravens' identity is going to be. When you get rid of Weddle, Zadarius, C.J. Mosley, and a few other pieces, and then you bring in an Earl Thomas coming off of a big surgery, and then mix up some other pieces. I'm very curious because that was a contender, and one of the main reasons they were a contender was that defense. But I like some of the moves of the Jets. I have not liked any of the moves really of Washington. I just feel like the Washington Redskins are this team that's never competing, yet they're willing to pay $80 million for a safety, and it's like,
yeah,
I don't see the plan. There's no plan here. I know why the Giants are restarting. I just don't know why they're restarting with Eli. That would be the teams that have caught my attention the most.
I mean, what I want to talk about is Eric Weddle, because I don't know if that defense can be the same without it, because obviously Earl's a younger, more athletic safety, but what Weddle does in disguising coverages for the Baltimore Ravens really allowed them to be ungame planable for, because you don't know, a quarterback can't use motion to deceive the coverage and deduct what they're finding out, because Weddle is so versatile, and Zadarius as well, because they can both drop into coverage and blitz equally likely, kind of like the Patriots and even defense.
Not only that, too, let's say that because we've seen a few clips and we heard Phillip Rivers talk about Weddle, let's say maybe that we're believing the Weddle hype too much, that it was more of the middle linebacker calling the plays. Well, that was C.J. Mosley, and he's gone too. So that's really my question is, you have the two seemingly vocal leaders of that defense. Oh, and Terrell Suggs, the emotional leader of that defense, is now in Arizona. So you lose a leader at all three lines, defensive line, linebacker, safety. And I look at that team and I go, for the better part of a decade and a half, we've known that the Ravens have good defense. And I wonder what happens this year.
Speaking of vocal players, would you prefer someone who is a vocal player or someone who just puts their head down and does what you want them to do? There are benefits for both of them, but who would you choose?
I mean, obviously you got your start by being a little bit out there and being vocal and getting your name out there. But something... So, how do you go about analyzing a team or player performance after and before Sims? Because before I started watching the pod, I just enjoyed the game and just gave my opinions afterwards. But recently, after the Super Bowl, I was kind of taking notes during the whole game, and I felt like I got a bigger understanding of what I was seeing, and I was able to break down coverages and defenses that I didn't even know I could do before.
Yeah, I think you know what it is? It's watching. I think a lot of people, they want to watch a game one time and they want to completely understand everything that happened. But the true thing is until you sit there and you rewatch it or you focus on one aspect, then you really haven't watched the game. You need to rewatch it, go, how did the offensive line block? Did the receiver run his route correctly? Was there a defender in the quarterback's face? These are all the things that it's not just, oh, that was a bad throw. Maybe someone missed an assignment to create that. So what it really takes is it takes doing the work. And we were talking about this beforehand. You have to, if you want to talk about something, you have to do the work. You can't just go on the PFF and look up the numbers and go, oh, that's what happened, because numbers lie. You can't just go on and read from a few experts because they may have been busy and they might not have watched, or they don't even know how to watch. So it really is finding the time to go back and just watch it a lot. Now, there may be some things that are disguises, and there may be some things that are complicated. But when you rewatch a game, you know if Lamar Jackson played well. You know if the offensive line was good. You just have to pay attention to it.
And one of the most interesting things that I saw in this Super Bowl that I haven't heard anyone talk about is how the Patriots they double-teamed on run plays. They have double-teamed Dominican Sue rather than Aaron Donald, because what Aaron Donald is he's too fast. He's too aggressive in trying to get the quarterback that he will blitz, leaving the A-gap open. And when they double-team Sue, that creates a massive hole for Sonny Michel to run in, which was one of the big parts of the game plan, allowing them to dominate the run game and time of possession, and just overall just win outright and forcing Goff into bad mistakes by causing him to panic and go for the big play downfield, which he's so prone to do.
Oh, absolutely. I think this has been a theme of Aaron Donald's career, that you can sometimes use his athleticism against him. That because he's able to destroy one person in front of him, that it's like judo, where you use somebody's momentum against them. It's the Bruce Lee quote, which is, be the water. Don't try and stop the water with your hands. Just flow with the water. So if he's going to go upfield, let it flow and then fill in behind him. I think that's a very good observation by you. I think the other thing in terms of double teaming Sue, I'm curious what happens with the Rams if they do indeed bring back Sue. But I think the thing about the Patriots is they're going to figure out what is your strength, and then they're going to take away your strength. And it really is a master class. But, yeah, Jared Goff had all the pressure right up in his face. and they were all over those receivers, and they said, all right, beat us. And he couldn't. And that's been an issue that we've been talking about for Jared Goff now for years.
I mean, if we were to win the NFC Championship game, I was really scared to play the Patriots because I wasn't confident in our second and third options in the receiving game, because obviously Keith Kirkwood was injured, who I thought was developing into a nice player, and we didn't really have anyone because Cam Meredith, Des Bryant, Keith Kirkwood were all injured. And what the Patriots were going to do is they were going to put one of the twins and maybe someone like J.C. Jackson onto Mike Thomas and just completely shut down our passing game, forcing us to rely on someone like Josh Hill out of the tight end or Dan Arnold, because we're missing Ben Watson as well from appendicitis. So I wasn't thinking it's going to be a very good matchup, and I think out of the Saints' possibilities, us being able to party about watching how bad the Super Bowl was probably the best thing that probably could have happened to us.
I don't know, because I would also say that I would give Sean Payton a lot of credit that he would find ways to move Alvin Kamara all over the place. And I also feel like he would find ways to use Taysom Hill as some form of option. But what you're saying is the reason why I'm so excited about Jared Cook for you guys.
Oh, I love it.
Jared Cook is another size, strength, multiple guy that can be put anywhere and can create matchups. Oh, you want to put your big-time corner, J.C. Jackson, who's really good at getting physical with big receivers, onto Michael Thomas? That's fine. Because now Jared Cook has an undersized speed safety on him, and he's just going to jump over him the entire game. I think ever since you guys lost Ginn and you tried Willie Snead, like you were looking for this speed guy, and I still think you need another speed guy. But I think Cook with Sean Payton, the triangle of Michael Thomas, Cook, and Alvin Kamara is really scary, but I still think you need a guy that can go 40 yards.
And I think the Saints made some great under-the-radar signings like Mario Edwards to a 2-year, $5 million contract, Malcolm Brown 3-year, $15 million, because the injury of Sheldon Rankins and the obviously impending suspension on Yamada are going to be a big help on big downgrade of the defensive line and getting that depth, which is much needed for the Saints, because we've seen them constantly have injury issues on the defensive line. Obviously, Davenport got injured. They lost Alex Okafor and Tyler Davidson.
And I pick my teams before the season for the teams that I think can go far. One of the first things I look at after quarterbacking coach is the depth of your O-line and how many guys deep is your D-line. Because the best teams every freaking year have 7 or 8 guys because stuff happens during the season. The Patriots played 8 on their D-line. They rotate their linebackers all the time. Those guys get tired. It's the reason we've been picking against the Vikings the last 2 years, is because the Vikings, if Everson Griffin goes down, they got nobody. And so you need to have depth. And I think getting Malcolm Brown, Mario Edwards, I think is exciting, but his neck injury over the years has always scared me. But getting somebody like Malcolm Brown to fill in there with those guys, because I think by the end of the year, Sheldon Rankins was getting very special. Sheldon Rankins was becoming a one-on-one nightmare. I also think that you've invested a lot in Marcus Davenport, and I think he needs to take a huge step forward this year and be a real pass rushing threat opposite of Cam, because it cannot be another year where Cam's the only guy to get to the quarterback.
And we saw moments of Davenport and Rankins being unblockable during the season, and that's why I think the Saints will be fine this season, because, as we know, Sean Payton's one of the greatest coaches. Drew Brees, one of the most intelligent players, although his arm strength is deteriorating, but he still was second in MVP voting last season, and their offensive line is one of the best in football with depth after signing Pat Eiflin, even though they lost Max Unger. And they got rookies like Will Clapp and Cameron Tom, who have shown themselves to be good backups. So I think the Saints will be fine this season. But when did you realize you had something special with the homies on your hands, and how did you plan to incorporate them into the pod? Because we've really seen a great improvement. The loss of Sims hasn't decreased the value of the Lefkoe Show, because I've seen it's still continuing at a high rate, and performing. I love watching it every day.
Oh, cool, man! I appreciate that. I think for me, me and Josh would run the social media account too, and we'd go in there and I'd be like, Josh, man, we got like 60 DMs. Like, I don't have time to go through this right now. And he'd be like, neither did me. And then like, I'd go get a haircut and I'd be like, screw it. And I'd answer all 60. And then the next week I'd be like, Josh, there's like 120 DMs. And then it just kept going. And Josh and I just began to realize that like, when we actually listened, like, one, it made our bond with the homies so much stronger, but also like, just like yourself and like a few other people, like, you guys know what the hell you're talking about. Like, a lot of you guys listen because you know what you're doing, and the suggestions that come through and the ideas are what motivates me. So when I go through and I go, ooh, that's a good idea, I'm going to do with that, I also can tell what resonates with the audience better. A lot of people that have like TV shows, they don't get feedback. They only get people that are willing to say, awesome seeing you on TV. But like, for me, like, I'll have some people, like, not everyone feels the way you do. Like, I would get 20 that were saying, I love the Lefkoe Show, it's great. And then I'd get another one that said, hey, to be honest, I miss the really in-depth film stuff, and I'm wondering what you're going to do. And I responded back to that guy and said, look, it's a great question. I think what we're doing right now is we're going to enjoy the offseason and meeting players and introducing them to the homies and all that. But then as the football season starts, we're going to get somebody in there that's a lot better at the X's and O's, so that we watch a game, we're not just reacting. But a lot of people, I think, that have bigger shows, they get afraid to get criticism because they think that it's haters. Like, a lot of people love to say they love to say two things. They love to say, oh, you're just a hater. And then the second thing is, you know, you've made it when you've got haters. And I think that there's a third thing, which is, you know, you're getting there when you realize your haters care a lot. And so when I have people that will tell me what should be different about the show, instead of saying, oh, you're an idiot, you're just someone online, we're all somebody online. Like, maybe I should listen to it, and maybe I should take it for what it's worth. And I think that's just a good thing to learn from everybody, is unless somebody's just being mean to you or they're just saying things to hurt you, a lot of times this is how they really feel. And I think that's when the show started getting really real for me, was when I could talk to people and realize I care about this show and they care about this show, and we both want this show to kick ass. So maybe I should listen, because they probably listen a lot more than I do.
So I started to realize the homies were special. So I was working with Rod earlier, and I got him to post on his producer account, on the regulators, what questions would you ask a producer, ask a broadcaster like Lefkoe. And so I've gotten some questions from the homies, and I just want to run them by you. So
I like that you're being like the homie representative right now.
I will happily take the head of all the homies. That will be my new title.
Get.
I love that. I love that your friend's like, no, you can't. All right, well, let me hear some of these questions.
So has there ever been a product you endorsed but never used?
We haven't really done a ton of products. Like, the only one that we ever did on the show was, oh, you know what? We did do, like, commercials and stuff, huh?
Like that Havana ad or whatever it was during Dantana's.
Wait, what are the commercials? Because we would read them one time and then they just play. Like, what were they?
I don't know. I didn't really understand what that whole Amazon original series was that they were producing on. And
oh yeah, like, I've never watched that show. Yeah, like, I still see previews for it. I'm like, guys, you got to explain what this show is, because all I know is some girl running away. Like, when we did the thing for Harry's, like, I used the razors, but no, not like. I try to only read, like, sometimes they'll be like, hey, do you want some of this? I'm like, sure. Like, when I would do stuff for Old Spice, they'd give me deodorant, and I'd be like, great, that feels good on my pits.
All right, you talk a big talk about wanting an NFL dunk contest, but have you ever been able to dunk?
I got one dunk in my life. The one dunk I ever had in my life was my high school basketball championship game my senior year, and the refs did not show up pre-game, where you can't dunk because if you dunk, you get a technical foul,
Mm-hmm.
where we played high school basketball. In warm-ups, you weren't allowed to. And since they weren't there, it just turned into everybody just trying to dunk. And, of course, we had a lot of people. I had a lot of guys on my team that went in D1. And there was one time where I went up, and it went down. And it was not the prettiest dunk in the world, but it was a dunk. But I will say, majority of the time, I was able to grab rim, and I could do all that, but I was never. That's why my vertical's 13 inches.
Last question. What unwritten rule of broadcasting would you change and why?
Ooh. This is the first one that came to my mind. There's no cheering in the press box. I think is a popular phrase that you hear a million times, where everyone in the media is supposed to be completely unbiased and is supposed to be up there working. And I totally get it. You're not supposed to be fans there. I just think that we're in a time where that's beginning to change. And what I mean by that is you can't be myopic. You can't be crazy. You can't be just like someone that doesn't care about the facts. But I think it's now important for everyone to say what kind of a team they grew up rooting for. And I think it's okay to say, I like this person because I've met them, and I don't like this person because I've never met them. Because that's how a lot of the media is. Before I met Davante Adams, I thought he was pretty good. But now that I've met him, yeah, I like him a lot because we got a chance to hang out. So I think that it's important to admit that if I'm doing my wide receiver rankings, I may have Davante a spot or too high. But I think that I would appreciate that if somebody said that, because I know that they're being honest. And the thing that I see a lot of times in the media is that everybody acts like they're the sports god. How dare you come into an argument with Skip Bayless? How dare you challenge Stephen A. Smith? And the true thing is they're not right on everything. They're not wrong on everything. They may be better at things than other people, but it's sports. It's fun. It's a conversation. This isn't court. I feel like there are so many former lawyers that have gotten into the media space that they've made it court, that there is a winner and that there is a loser. And I don't play by that. So that's another unwritten rule. I don't need to win and you to lose. And I don't think just because you won means that I lose. I think that this show could go on and be hugely successful and you could be super happy. And my show could go on and be huge. I don't think that my show needs to fail for yours to succeed. And I think that's one thing I wish everybody could understand is don't root for people to fail to make yourself feel better. Just root for yourself and hope that everybody else is okay, because we're all going to go through tough crap eventually. Can I ask you guys a question?
Ask away.
All right. So what is it about? What would you like to see more of on the Lefkoe Show? And is there any ideas maybe that you've had?
It'd be nice for you to just bring in, teach a class to NFL players, just giving them a Lefkoe PR, left, right, and center, telling them how to grow their brand. I think that'd be a really fun segment to do in the Lefkoe Show.
I think that's pretty good.
Obviously, I don't want to be like, I really just love the podcast, but I do. I just think what you've done after you've lost the analytical side of Sims and you've gone on to make it towards your brand, you didn't make it conform to what it was before. You made it conform to what you can do well, and that's what's made you succeed. And when you go on to stuff like Fast Break and to the Rising Star game, you don't just tell what the producer does. You go, Luka Doncic, and you give your Sixers bias. You're not afraid to go in there and shake up the norm. You're able to go in there and do what you do best and make it more enjoyable for us, the viewer.
I think being authentic is extremely important. Don't not be yourself just for some producer to be happy. And I think you do a great job of that.
I appreciate that, fellas. I think it's something that, what you guys will realize too is that in the beginning you want to do a very clean show. Like when you guys do it, you want to have a show where your mics all work and the audio sounds good and you didn't stutter and it was great. And you're like, wow, that was a clean show. But then you're going to look back at it 5 years from now and you're going to go, man, I didn't have the energy, or I wasn't, maybe my ideas weren't right. It was clean, but it's okay when you mess up. The thing about this is you're trying to get as close to you as you can be. Because all of us, when a microphone comes on or a camera comes on, we genetically change a little bit, because that's how human beings are. When you know you're recorded, you're a little bit different. But what we're all trying to do is be our true self on camera. And I think that's why people care about authenticity now, because we can see who's real and we can see who's fake. So
thank you very much for the advice.
Well, signing off from Atlanta, I'm Wayne Muzel. Take care.